you
Right.
don't see the sound waves recording.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I gotta check that every time. So it's
Hmm.
working actually. So yeah, greetings, greetings, greetings. You are now tuned in to Vault. Trust Christian own, nothing control everything. Just want to thank you all for tuning in live, listening to replay. Always appreciate everybody that tunes in live, listening to replay. This is definitely this is called one of those conversations that you can only get when you move into the right rooms and you pay the cost to be the boss. So we definitely want to give a big shout out to our guest today. Met them in an environment where business is rather the call of the day, and just to see a fellow compadre, a fellow brother, just really in there taking advantage of the opportunities that are in front of us. This is a gentleman I definitely am gonna, maybe not do him justice by introducing him, but when you hear who Jared Green is, you'll know why you need to know who Jared Green is and him actually telling you who he is directly. But I'm always appreciative. We always at the Vault are able to, appreciative of meeting people in certain environments. And Jared is definitely one of those individuals that when we talk about dealing with A players, players that want to be world class, players that want to have national and international presence in business. This is the individuals that you have to get behind. And you have to understand that there's a pedigree to this, ladies and gentlemen. So sure, he's had some advantages. We're gonna put the knife in his side and ask him, but he has been privileged to be in a 1% environment, and so a 1% environment looks different. And we're gonna have that conversation today because we met him in a 1% environment. So, without further ado, whether y'all know it or not, we from the DMV, so we appreciate who we
Yes,
talking to
sir.
because his dad is a DMV legend, hero, probably from where he's from for sure.
Yes,
But
sir.
even just he brought a high level of professionalism outside of Doug Williams. So, but shout out to Daryl Green for sure. Appreciate you. Love to have him on for sure. Do the father son interview. That's gonna be major. But at least starting out right now with the second coming, generation, Jared Green. Jared Green, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. Glad to be here.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. How are you? What's going on?
Well, it's great to reconnect. I think that's the beauty of the event that we were at, being able to make genuine connections. We've now met in the same city, and now here we are. So, that's networking isn't just about getting people's information. It's really about being active and engaging.
Exactly. And I'm happy to hear that you said that. So when you say actively engaging, tell us, even though we know we had that introduction to each other, you know, what was even your purpose of being at the conference? Where are you at right now in your life? I do want to go back in a second to your beginnings, but even intertwine your beginnings and how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah, the reason why I was at the conference, I have been challenged or invited, depending on who's talking, to really leverage the spaces of sports and entertainment, these industries that I've been in years ago, to make an impact with the technology that my company is building. We have a traditional sales team, but then my biz dev approach, is a little more, on the entertainment side. I do a lot with clients overseas and have a lot of events and dinners and all these things. And so because I'm unconventional in that regard, um, there were some ideas that had kept coming my way that I was kind of avoiding sports and all that stuff because I don't really, we can talk about that in a little bit, just not wanting to be labeled as an athlete. But some people said, hey, this would be good for you to get in the space. And I said, well, the timing and the space has got to be right. And that particular conference, which was, really a phenomenal room of very wealthy individual, high wealth individual family offices, collectively coming together as one, um, and then having the taste or the appetite to invest in, companies like mine just because I play sports. It's like, okay, that's a space that I can get in, but we're not doing a dog and pony show. So that was why I was going there, and that was really the first activation of this kind of corporate athlete, that really I've ever done.
Okay, okay. And so even after you saying that, what you said you feel that there was value actually in the meeting.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from panelists to people like you to conversations that I had at the happy hours. I have about five different potential deals that are going through the standard processes of, our teams meeting each other and putting together opportunities. Like this is real stuff that came from that conference.
Recording in
So
progress.
All right.
for me, oh, you want to run it back?
No, you're good. I promise you, it is what it is. But no,
Okay. No, all good.
you're good.
But yeah, I think that conferences like that, because not everybody or a very small minority of people are going there without something. And like I don't think people go to that conference to look for something.
Right,
I think people are something, and
right.
then as they share who they are and what their company is, then they engage with one another and good things happen. I think that's the differentiator. And so I was happy to go, got a lot of value out of it, but also I'm now speaking at their next conference in Rhode Island, so it just gets better and better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love to hear it. I love to hear it. And it's tough, man. We could take this conversation in so many different directions, just to hear, the value. I really got to hear about this world class, like, mentality. And I know this is a different, maybe you didn't come to this interview and this conversation like, man, what do you mean? But there is a mentality that you have that makes you above average. And
Mm.
that means in either the way that you build relationships or the way that you have a goal oriented mindset. I want you to talk about, and it's not to, denigrate anyone, it's to point out a mentality that it just is imperative that you have at a level of the room that we were in. I mean, I still want you to speak on that room because it was you know what you lining up, right? You ain't tell me you had some meetings after now, but it should be expected, in
Mm.
all honesty. So could you talk about the one percenter mentality, maybe with conjunction to the room, how you carried it in there, maybe the 1% observation you saw from them and their mentality in the room, how they're operating in the less than 1%? Please speak on that, Jared.
I think that because from my vantage point, I have a very complex past, right? Like my dad is from Section 8 housing, grew up in the CUNY Homes projects in Houston, Texas. And then he ends up getting to the NFL, which he gained fame, not wealth. He signs a deal for like $300,000. Everybody thinks he's a millionaire.
Right.
And then obviously coming from the difficulty that he came from, broken home, he has to buy mom a house, he has to buy dad a house, buys his sister a house, buys his brother a house. So you got all these different challenges. He didn't really come into money till I was leaving the house. My dad was privileged to play 20 years. So by the time he was done, I was a freshman or sophomore in high school. And by the time 5 years after that is when he went to the Hall of Fame, and that's when his money came. So really, I was sophomore. At 5 years of that, I'm in college, and then once you get into the Hall of Fame, you're able to command more for your speaking engagements and all these other things. So I didn't grow up with a lot of money. We grew up in nice neighborhoods, but we were the poorest of these rich people in the Northern Virginia area. But we were the most prominent, not just because of my father's fame, but because his character and all the things that he did in the community and that he was on the president's board and all these other things. He just he's currently just a very dynamic being in the city of Washington D.C. and beyond. So much so that they gave him the key to the city last year.
Oh wow! Hey, he from
Yeah,
Houston. You got H Town got a DC key. Hey,
exactly, and that's
go
that's
ahead. We'll go
very
ahead and give
unique.
y'all that now. Hey, he deserves that key.
That's a
Congratulations.
big deal. That's a
Yeah,
big deal. So
yeah.
I say all that to say I don't come from money or like I don't come from a familiarity of certain conversations about money or in those 1% spaces, but I do have access by way of fame and influence. The hardest part is to transfer fame and influence to real monetization. That's the challenge that a lot of people go through. It's like you can't stop dribbling the basketball. You can't stop singing your songs. You can't stop doing whatever it was that you entertain people on to get to the real money. So I come from that background, being able to like notice and decipher what real money is, but not really the conversations. But at the same time, because of sports, because of representing my father, in every space of my life, and then also in sports of my own, I learned decorum. I learned like professionalism. I learned how to protect secrets when the media is asking you about an injury, or the media is asking you about a play, or the media is asking about who's going to play and who's not going to play. Um, I learned at the University of Virginia as an athlete, student athlete, and then in the league, that there's a way that you can communicate. And I took that same communication style that I would do with the media, who would publish whatever I say to the masses. I've took that into the boardrooms.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a unique. I don't really have that much familiarity with like family offices and big money. All I knew was the owners of teams, and how they did what they did.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, I think that being at that conference really helped me understand that there's multiple ways to fund your business. And you can have relationship partners. You can have people that just believe in you,
Mm-hmm.
that will find a way to put the money in your pocket. And sometimes it's non-dilutive. Maybe they'll say, "Hey, I've got a project that I needed you to work on anyway." And that project we had it budgeted at, $500,000. I'll give you 300,000 if you can do it, and then I'll say, "Okay, great. I'll take that on. Maybe my costs are only 50,000. Now that just funded me, to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can fund it with your customers, but there's so many different ways that you can skin this cat. And I think being at conferences like that, you get to have more conversations, and those conversations come from more stories, and those stories lead to, those best practices and best outcomes.
Oh, for sure. And it's interesting you say that because I remember last year building a relationship with one of the founders, co-founders of Equinox, and right now, actually, finally a year later, just from keeping a relationship there, soft warm, and then being able to connect her with a company right now that's actually doing a raise and actually a strategic player. They are a gym, and she wanted to kind of go back in and look at something again, and so this is something that even being able to have those level of relationships, you're able to facilitate things and have conversations and get things done at a very, very high level. And so even, maybe not that necessarily anyone's born into wealth, but it's more like, what do you think is the conversation mentality? How strict are you on your speech? How much do you work on going and pitching your ideas, and talk about that experience? Because a lot of people, man, from certain cultures will gripe about the numbers of people being funded. And it's like, well, you got to remember who's really asking and how much are they asking for. So, it's different when somebody says, "Hey, I need 2 million," and there's a difference when somebody says, "I need 200 million." So I want you to kind of talk about, when you go in and the value for pitching ideas or speech. Could you talk about that? Ladies and gentlemen, I think he fell off, so we're going to give a quick pause here.
Recording stopped.
But definitely appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening, and replay. Always appreciate everybody for tuning in live, listening, replay. Right now, we actually have Jared Green. This is actually Hall of Fame son here, Daryl Green's son. He played for the now they're called the Washington Commanders. He's the actual and then Jared actually played professionally as well too. So he's being slightly humble on this call because he wants us to keep us focused on football. Keep us focused on business, which we definitely do want to. So we're gonna do our best. He's probably gonna hop back on. He probably had a situation where the tech or something died on his end, but appreciate everybody. We've been working over here, everyone. Jerry, you back?
Okay. I don't know what happened. It dropped me off.
Yeah,
It
no
kicked me
worries.
out.
No. So, but we definitely wanted you to speak on how much you're practicing your pitch, knowing that a lot of communities will say it's hard to raise money, but then you walked in hand and stick, beating them.
Yeah, so for me, I try. A lot of people say you got to have your pitch ready, you got to be ready for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
My reframe is you have to create the type of moments that you want to create.
Recording in progress.
And
Okay.
so what I mean by that is, because I could wait for life to happen to me and say, okay, when I get the moment, 2 minutes, quick, I'll be ready and I'll work on what I need to say. Or I could say, I never have those moments. I find ways to get potential customers um, to events where I'll be with them for 3 hours. I'll go golfing with them at the Congressional Golf Course in DC, or I'll try to put together a big event at Formula One in Miami and do XYZ. Like I try not to do business on the flyby. I'm in a really deep relationship economy. And so that might sound like wishful thinking, but I really, that's how I operate. Now, what that requires me to do though is be extremely authentic and extremely knowledgeable about my products and my services. So that I do. I work really hard. I guess you don't practice it, but it is my practice. It's my life's practice to really be focused on what are the problems that we're solving globally through Engage, and how do those problems what is the engine driving those problems? And that engine is my heart, my soul. And because of the level of engagement that I have been given from my father and the perks of being able to have the team doctor of the Washington Redskins be my doctor, the dentist be my dentist, if I need equipment, I can go their equipment manager. Just as a kid, I had everything I needed. If I needed to go in the hot tub, cold tub, work out, play basketball, I could do all that in the Redskins facility. The average kid just doesn't grow up with that. So because of that, I felt that level of engagement is what got me to the NFL as a second generation NFL player. And if that's the case, then it must be true that engaged individuals reach peak level performance and succeed at a higher level than others. And
Correct.
so that is the driving force of our company. We're just using AI as a vehicle to be leveraged so that engaged people can reach peak level performance and succeed. So and then the technical jargon, okay, how do we do it? Language models, what are we, robotics, yada yada yada. But like that's really how I get business. But I think I'm better versed at telling my story
Mm-hmm.
and talking about my dad and how I came up and then that like that's I think that's the magic.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay, and so let's hop into transition from sport to business, or was it the same for you? Like that, did you have your hand in it? Prior to post sport life, or and then as well talk about how this new idea came upon you. Was it divine? Did you just say, "Hey, I got a better way to actually flip these pancakes," and started flipping pancakes, or what made you go into this new venture? And please talk about it.
Yeah, it started with me getting into most players, most NFL athletes, when they leave the game of football, when they play their last play, they go to one of 3 to 5 things. Let me see if I can list them out.
Uh oh.
They either train people, train kids, they train kids or adults, right, as physical fitness trainers. They go back and coach. They go coach at their high school, their college, or coach in the pros. They do commentator work. They work at some network, or they're on a podcast or something like that. Um, or they go back to school and then they go try to figure out what in the world do I do? I haven't engaged a professional career outside of sports in 10 years, So that's 4 things. But what I'll say is the small minority is the 5 who start their own businesses, and most of the time it's not the guy who got all the money that's really starting the businesses. And those guys might invest in stuff, but a lot of times it's the guy who maybe didn't get the opportunity, but really was great at studying the playbook, really was, great at networking, that those because we're not athletes, we're just human beings and we just happen to be playing the sport. Just because our legs or arms are stronger than someone else's doesn't mean that we can't be exactly what they are in a professional space. So really when you think about like the corporate athlete, the transition, my transition was unique in a way because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. When I was on the Oakland Raiders, I had spent some time in Silicon Valley. I learned about tech, I learned about applications, and I said, I want to get into technology. I left football with that in my soul, but I knew that I couldn't start with that because I needed a different level of capital to get in that, especially back in the day when the apps cost so much more to make.
Right.
Um, and so I said, okay, I'm gonna do what I know how to do best. I'm gonna do what I know best, which is coaching and leadership. I was always a leader on my team. I was always leading people in the community. I was always doing that. So I said, let me go do that. Let me monetize that as a business. I went out to a Chick-fil-A, convinced the guy that my leadership services could help his company. I believed in myself. I didn't really know all the data and analytics back in 2015 wasn't people really weren't talking about that.
Right. Right.
Um, so I was just like, hey, I can do it. I can bring the energy. I can change the culture. I used a lot of words like culture back then,
Uh huh.
and so I did it, and they had a 17% increase in sales year over year, and from that point on, it was like, hey, tell this other guy, work with this other guy. He owns a Chick-fil-A. Okay, my brother owns a car shop, and I started coaching a bunch of people using this program that I built out in Oakland as an Oakland Raider. I
Okay.
just built out this curriculum,
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny. I built it for myself, really, for me to follow for my life, because
Right.
I knew I was transitioning out of football.
Mm-hmm.
But I built that out in that curriculum and that coaching company. I scaled that out to be a six-figure business, and then that's when I met a gentleman in DC who said, "Hey, I can help you with an application." We built up an application that then turned that six-figure business into $1 million business. And unfortunately, that application died with the times because right when we hit the brink of it, 2020 happened, and then people really needed like telecom,
Ah, got
stuff.
you.
Like it was a lot of other elements on applications that I just didn't have.
Yeah.
We were basically a learning management system layered on top of like a small chat component where people could communicate with each other and comment on stuff. So we just weren't prepared. The pandemic happened. A lot of people needed Zoom and some other products. Um, and so, it was like, hey, I got to go back to the drawing board. I don't know what to do. We lost like 70% of our clients.
Oh wow.
And yeah, it was rough. I
Wow.
mean, but the pandemic was rough for everybody. It was like everybody had to pick themselves up and figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was one of those people. And the greatest thing that ever happened, you said divine. I ran into Calvin, my business partner. We were both in Manhattan, New York. We were listening to a presentation from a CEO of a company of a startup that was with sports and tech, and he and I forged a relationship during the gaps of free time, and from that point on, it was like he needed he had what I needed and needed what I had, and that was the beautiful connection, the yin and the yang between Calvin and I, and that's when we took everything I had been doing historically and everything he had done and built historically, as he is a coder developer extraordinaire, and we put it into Engage work, and now we have Atlas and Engage Academy. I mean, we're basically using the same technology. Think of it as like a soul, right? You've got you if it's like the different nuances of a human being. Just like I was saying earlier, I'm Jared the athlete. I'm Jared the philanthropist. I'm Jared the father. I'm Jared. I'm all these things, and I can be the same way, as an employee, right? Like I can use technology to be everything that I need to be, and be successful.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So okay. Definitely a lot to digest. It's getting heady for sure, most people, but because
Yeah, I went kind of deep on that.
you're fine. So just let's go back to you transitioned out, you had this idea already, and now we're here. Let's break down this company, and if it gets heady again, we just I'm sorry we're in the Jetsons era. We've been waiting.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
needed flying cars. We're behind. So please talk to
Mm,
how AI is going to help us get there, if you know what I mean. Please.
yeah. Man, so this is gonna be very simple because I'm the simple guy at the company.
Okay.
Um, what we have here, there's three pillars that are falling right in front of our eyes. So first is this is the next industrial revolution. Like
Mm-hmm.
that we're jobs will never look the same. And there's a book called Deep Work by Cal Newport. I
Okay.
encourage everybody to read it.
Okay.
I read that book back in like 2016 or 2017. And he was like a prophet because he was talking about the critical need to be able to work in the depth, I mean, super, super um like deep work in a distracted world. And here we are. The world is the most distracted it's ever been.
Right.
And so he talks about how in the future there are basically three players that will exist in the game. No one else can exist.
Okay.
And the three players are one, those who already had resources, so they can invest in more startups and they can invest in the market. And those people will be able to continue to recur revenue. Then you've got the people who are talented, like myself. We're always going to get some gig to be an entertainer, or to be a strategic mind, maybe coach consultant. We're just in that space. And basically, what he keyed in on is that there was a time when the consultant was the same guy that lived in the same neighborhood. If you're in Fort Lauderdale, the consultant's in Fort Lauderdale. But now, because of AI, because of tech, because of video conferencing and all that stuff, now that guy from Fort Lauderdale can't beat out Jared from Houston. So now I'm coaching 15 of his potential customers in Fort Lauderdale because I'm a super talent. That's what he calls them, super talent,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you got that group. Then the final group are those who can learn to adjust and navigate these new technological advancements. So those are the people who can listen to this podcast and say, okay, I need to go and learn how to code. I need to learn how to prompt. I need to learn how to work with React, how to work with, any of these different tools, Gemini, how to build things on my own. Like that's the group that's gonna really clean up in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Like I believe that group that can really lock in and focus, they're gonna do great. And people like me are always gonna need to hire them,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not a specialist. So I say all that to say that's like the foundation of what I'm about to say. Um, that first pillar of the transition from what you do regularly for work today to what you'll be doing in the future is very scary. And people need to get serious about this. If you think that you're safe because people like you at your job, you're not. If you think that you're safe because you have a great customer rapport, great rapport with your customers, doesn't matter. There are things that your boss is going to want to automate and cut costs. And if you're costing your boss six figures, there's no way that they're going to say, I want this person, unless this person is what I said earlier from deep work. One of those three, some sort of super talent, really, really deep in the technology where they know more than their boss knows. So that's real. And that's why I speak to to what I say.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is the scattered technologies that come into this new frontier, right? So
Mm-hmm.
like you think about when social media first started, there was a million things. You could be on Vine, you can be on Instagram, MySpace. I mean, it was everything. And
Right.
then the market corrected and it was like based on a social media market, it corrected and said, no, there's only one giant. And then Facebook became that giant. and everything else was owned by Facebook or Meta.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that's what's about to happen um, from the AI landscape. But right now, that category king isn't that. I hope Engage is that in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, there are scattered tools. So because those tools are so scattered, what are people going to do? You got to be in the know. You got to know someone who was using this application. You got to know that this application exists. You got to really dig for stuff. So now you got that problem. Now you have, uh, socioeconomic and educational, disparities, right? So now, are they teaching how to prompt language models and Chat GPT in Southeast Anacostia? In those public schools. So there's another problem. That other pillar is the education and access to these tools, and the unification of these tools. So if there's 17 tools out there, how can we bring them all together? That's another reason why my company exists. Atlas is a singular tool that is agnostic. It can plug into anything: Microsoft Teams, Google, Salesforce, Workday, and it can reason all of your data. And as it reasons your data, it can help you to make actual business actions and run tasks either by you or by it. And so those two pillars kind of lead us to that. The third pillar, and this is the I guess you can say this is the yin to the yang of those other two pillars, which is we're at a human crisis of disengagement. So yeah, that's all fine and dandy that my company can build an app that can help people and supercharge them at work. But what do we do about a disengaged generation? We are the generation of loneliness. We're the generation of depression, suicide. So now I have to find a way to use this same technology to not just help you work faster, but also to help you ground yourself, to find yourself,
Mm.
and for you to become. Now this is where it gets weird for some people, to become a companion with this technology, so that technology can be somewhat of a Jarvis like Iron Man, or C3PO, for the Star Wars folks.
There you
Like
go.
this thing that's just walking with you and experiencing life with you and encouraging you all along the way.
Yeah, I'm really excited that and I can tell you know it for sure, just the way that you landed that plane right there and really walked us through that thought scenario, because it is one of those things that can get very heady very quickly if people are not in the know currently and they're scared of it. And then when we get to a point of, oh, what do you know? And it's like, well, I don't know anything. Where do I start? And just like you say, individuals reading that book, it will bring them up to speed and things of that nature.
Yes.
It's incredible, man. Just like you say, the marketplace. We like to push entrepreneurship, or we talk to quite a few entrepreneurs as far as working with people that are in trust and things of that nature. But it still goes back to being an entrepreneur. If you could just, land the plane again on the importance of let's just talk culturally to African indigenous descent people, letting them know the importance of being your own boss, taking the reins in your hand, maybe with just the times that we're living in, or even with the current administration, and just talking about maybe how favorable it is for the culture to actually move forward and go back on a land grab, go back on a cash grab, and truly solidify themselves as a business force in the American market as well as globally.
So I don't make technology for people to be entertained. My goal is that people will become more independent with this technology, because when we democratize artificial intelligence, now anyone can generate wealth from their pocket. Right now, that statement still holds true with an iPhone. The problem is the iPhone, when you talk to it, it doesn't always talk back. And so the next wave of artificial intelligence, the whole goal of all this is that humans can communicate with computers and computers can serve humans. And if a computer can serve a human, then that means a child in Zambia can utilize artificial intelligence to build their own online store and to generate wealth for their, community. And that to me is something that the world has never seen before.
Right.
And so the goal is entrepreneurship by way of leveraging the companion relationship with this technology. And for instance, in Atlas, you can make your own applications and you don't have to know how to code. You just prompt it just like prompting ChatGPT, but it can build an actual app for you. Well, what happens when you turn that app around and then start selling that product, or if you start using that application to supercharge what you do? Like these are real opportunities right now that our ancestors did not have access or opportunity to take advantage of. And this is why, you have to get in front of it. You can't be late on this one. um how many times have we heard, oh man, if I had the money, or if I knew somebody, I could have invested in real estate, I could have put money on Apple, I could have, this is the time to do it. And it's really not expensive.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. What would you say? I got two things for you, and we want to wrap up here.
Hmm.
What would you tell your 20-year-old self, and what was the best piece of business advice that you've either come up on your own, or someone gave you so far, and it's like it's giving you mad mileage right now in life,
The best advice anybody has ever told me
or you came up
is,
with on your own?
no, 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 I got it. I got this person's tattooed on my arm.
Okay,
My cousin told me, he passed away the last year, and he said,
condolences.
"Hey," he said, "Be you." He said when you're you, when you're operating like truthfully in who you are, it doesn't matter. Like whatever's going to attract you attracts you. And so
Yeah,
I am so not status quo business guy, entrepreneur. I do my thing my way. I show up as I am, unapologetically but wonderfully. I'm not like unapologetically goofy looking,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
I've created and curated my style, my verbiage, just everything. And I curated it based off of my self belief, and also my belief for what I'm supposed to give to the world, and nothing else. I'm not worried about how I look, and because of that, man, I'm so comfortable. People
Yeah,
are just always so uncomfortable
yeah,
working,
yeah.
and my comfort level allows me to do really good business. And I think in a way I help a lot of other people get free, um, because I used to say free people, free people. You're around a guy like that, and that's who my cousin was for me. Like, man, this dude just do his thing. He had blue hair one time. Like, man, how you get blue dreads? But he was able to rock the blue dreads because he's like, yo, I don't care,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
and like that. And he always had some sort of gig. He always getting money. And this cat had no college experience, had nothing, came from the hood. So like for me, seeing that, I'm like, okay, that's how I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it that way. And if that costs me money, that's okay because it's not gonna cost me stress.
Right. Big time. Appreciate you. All right, so, what would you tell your 20-year-old self? Because you're already older. So, what you gonna say now to your 20-year-old self if you could go back and just whisper something in his ear real quick?
Um, I would say this whole thing is a movie, and like some of the scenes are slower than others,
Mm-hmm.
some of the scenes are faster, but remember that, because as movies are, so is life. Some characters are temporary, some characters you only see a certain side of them, the audience sees another side of them. Like really look at it like a movie. I treat everything like I do like a movie, that I do like a movie. And because of that, it keeps me from falling in love too quick, jumping into a business thing too quick. Like all of these things where we sometimes move in haste. Like if you realize that you're only on, back in the day we watched the DVDs, and you'd be on chapter 5, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
um, like if you're only on chapter 3, and there's 13 chapters in this movie on this disc, man, you got time. Like you don't. Maybe she's not the one, or maybe that business is not. Maybe that sign that you saw in that potential business partner, maybe you should follow that. Like he's not the only opportunity you'll get. Like you'll get tons of opportunities. It's really just about being prepared. So that would be my advice. Like, don't move fast.
Yeah.
Like, really, really be a quarterback. Sit in that pocket and look at everything as it comes to you.
Amen to that, man. You know that you have to actually go through some real lessons to even like know what you're saying right now,
Mm,
and that's not just in like you say one area. It's multiple areas that give you a holistic view to say, you know what, I didn't need to move fast in any area, and with haste at least. I didn't need to make that decision even faster than what I thought I did. And it's like I definitely think about that, even though we still run into a lot of one percenters, and they still have FOMO too. But
hmm
it's just eliminating that type of thought process and doing your best to be, present at that time is so important, and that's something that I appreciate about you, being able to get on here when I reach out, you reach out and, just we're getting rid of the myths, that, oh, our culture doesn't work together. Oh, we don't know how to do business together. And it's like, just even, you never know where it can go, but we have to be willing to walk up to each other and have conversations when we're at conferences, and it actually is not like a hate or anything. It's just like, hey, I just wanted to at least let you know, like, I see you, you see me, and as well acknowledging people when they do successful things. Hearing you talk about the EBITDA spread that you created from stage, I think that was something that really said, hey, you know what, this is somebody that understands more about business than just trying to invest in businesses. This is somebody that actually has to focus on performance and growth revenue, and understands there's complexities to growth revenue. Understand that you have to pivot. Understand that there's good times, bad times, and to even see you pull off the Houdini move that you pulled off with when the time struck against you with 2020. I mean, that is crazy to know that you go from 6 to a 7 and then you go back to a 6. It sounds good in theory to read that in a book and say, oh yeah, that happened to someone else. Yeah, it is always good when it happens to somebody else, but when it happens to you, it's more than a statistic, if you know what I mean.
for
So,
sure.
so it's just like, man, it's just incredible to hear your resiliency as we hear in these environments. You're resilient and you're gritty, and having those traits, it says something. So definitely shout out to Jared Green here. Thanks you for coming on. Played professional football and still playing professional business, and looking forward to seeing him grow his ventures in a massive way. Daryl Green's son, Hall of Famer. Definitely excited to have this interview with you, man, because it means a lot to a lot of people to know that people like you are accessible. Is there any social media that you want to share? I definitely want you to share your business, man, so people can reach out. We're here to promote, man, for sure.
For sure, for sure. Engage.work on Instagram. Just be Jared is my Instagram. And then you can look us up, Engage Work, on LinkedIn. And I'm on LinkedIn under my name as well, Jared Green.
Okay, awesome, man. Thank you so much, big time, for taking out the time, man, and speaking to the people and just letting them know what you got going on, and really having a level of inspiration, man. Because a lot of people are wondering, what do I do next? And you giving them so much value in this episode, man. Whether it's to actually go in on their dream, or to go in and get busy on this technology, so they're not disintermediated by this technology, which is happening at a massive rate. I mean, you literally aged a technology that we could ask the group younger than us, do they know what a DVD is? And they would say no. And that's how crazy fast
Yeah.
technology did a spin ski, man. So appreciate you big time. Definitely will let you get off, man, and get some things done. But thank you for the time today. Definitely look forward to doing another episode. Maybe, when you're in town, or when we're all sitting around and really having that father-son conversation, having that fireside chat of like there's values that are passed along to these gentlemen. It's not, oh, you got an athletic ability. Come on now. It's already incredible you were able to go pro. Promise you that. You know that. But, to be second gen and then still come out the gate and still stay at professional level of business, it really does say we're not just passing along, like you say, oh, I got to pass you some athletic ability so you can maintain a tradition. It's like, no, I'm passing along you some intelligence and some value. So appreciate you big time, Jared. Look forward to having you back again, and I appreciate you big time. Thank you, man.
My pleasure, man. Talk to you very soon.
Thank you.
All right. Take care.